Welcome to part 2 of the Supernatural Origin series. Revenge is a fire that does not burn alone. It shapes destinies, alters emperors, and bends the will of the gods. First, we look into Draupadi's birth. King Drupad, once a proud ruler of Panchal, had been humiliated. His old friend turned rival, Dronacharya, had seized half his kingdom, leaving him burning with shame. Drupad understood that vengeance was not merely a task for mortal hands. It needed the power of destiny to set it ablaze. He turned to the sages, Yaj and Upayas, seeking warriors not born of flesh and blood, but brought forth through the sacred Putrakarma Yajna. Rising from the fire itself, the heavens trembled. The yajna flames rose higher, their golden tongues twisting and roaring. And then, from the heart of the inferno, he emerged. Drishtadyumna, prince not born, but forged, a warrior with a singular destiny to kill Dronacharya. The gods had decreed it, fate had sealed it, but the fire was not finished. It roared once more, and from its depths arose a woman of unparalleled beauty and divine grace, Draupadi. She shall be the destroyer of evil, she shall unbind the chains of injustice. The world will bow to her wrath. Born with the scent of lotus and the fire of destiny, Draupadi would change the course of history. Her humiliation would ignite the Kurukshetra war. Her marriage to the Pandavas would unify the greatest warriors of the age. And her vow, her unbound hair, would be tied only when the Kauravas had fallen. The fire had spoken. Dharma had found its warriors. Next, we dive into the origin stories of the Pandavas. The story of Pandavas begins with Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, the devoted queen of Hastinapur, who once served the powerful sage Durvasa with unwavering dedication. Pleased with her devotion, the sage granted her a sacred mantra, a boon that allowed her to invoke any deity and bear a child with their divine essence. King Pandu, cursed to die if he ever fathered children, turned to Kunti with a desperate plea. Use the boon to ensure our lineage lives on. First, she called upon Yam, the god of righteousness. Thus, Yudhishthir was born, a child of wisdom and justice. His arrival was marked by celestial omens of peace, a sign that he would embody dharma and righteousness. Encouraged by Pandu, Kunti invoked Vayu, the wind god. Thus, Bhim was born. His birth was accompanied by an earthquake, symbolizing the unmatched strength he would one day wield. Finally, she summoned Indra, the king of the gods. Thus, Arjun was born, destined to become the greatest archer and the warrior who would uphold Dharma in the great war to come. But fate had yet another role to play. With Pandu's permission, Kunti taught Madri the mantra, on the promise that she will use it only once. Madri, wishing for twin sons, invoked the Ashwini Kumaras, the celestial twins. Thus, Nakul and Sahadev were born, graceful, wise, and destined to complete the 5 Pandavas. They were highly skilled in medicine and horsemanship, just like the Ashwini Kumaras. Born of celestial grace, raised by mortal hands, the Pandavas were destined for greatness. Their journey would shape the fate of Bharatvarsh, the land of Bharat, leading them to the battle where dharma righteousness and adharma injustice would finally collide. Now we jump to the birth of the Kauravas. Destiny does not always arrive as a blessing. Sometimes it comes as a test, wrapped in suffering and burdened with ominous signs. Years before the great war of Kurukshetra, sage Vyas, also called Krishna Dwaipayan, blessed Queen Gandhari with a divine boon. She would bear 100 sons, warriors who would shape the fate of Hastinapur. But fate is rarely kind. Months turned into years. While a normal pregnancy would last 9 months, Gandhari's womb remained heavy for 2 long years. No child was born, no sign of life stirred. And then, the devastating news came. Kunti had already given birth to Yudhishthir, the firstborn of the Pandavas. A wave of despair and anger consumed her. The Pandavas, her rivals, had already taken the first step towards the throne. In a moment of unbearable agony, Gandhari struck her stomach. And then, it happened. Instead of a child, a lifeless, unformed mass of flesh lay before her. She cried to reach Sage Vyas, who arrived at the palace. Seeing her despair, he reassured her, "My blessing has not failed, O Queen. Your sons will still be born." Under his guidance, the grotesque lump was divided into 101 pieces, each placed carefully inside a pot filled with clarified butter. Days passed, then weeks, and then finally, one by one, the Kauravas emerged. Duryodhan. His birth was not marked by joyous celebrations, but by ominous howls from the palace courtyard. The animals cried out in distress, their wails echoing through the night like a warning from the gods. Vidur's voice was firm, yet filled with concern. "O king, this child's birth is marked by ill omens. Abandon him now, lest he bring ruin upon the kingdom." But Dhritarashtra, blinded not just in sight, but by love for his son, refused. Soon, 99 more sons and one daughter, Dushala, emerged from the remaining pots. 100 princes, raised to be warriors. Not many know about Dronacharya's birth. Some are born of the womb, others are born of fate. As the beautiful divine nymph known for her tempting presence, Ghritachi emerged from the river. Sage Bharadwaj, despite his disciplined mind, felt an involuntary stir within him, a fleeting moment of attraction. But sages are men of restraint. Thus Bharadwaj withdrew, suppressing his emotions. In that brief moment, an unbidden spark of life was set in motion. Unwilling to let it go to waste, Bharadwaj instinctively captured his essence in a sacred vessel, an earthen pot. Days passed, and the pot glowed with divine energy. Then, in a miraculous moment, a child emerged. He was drawn, literally meaning born of a pot. Fate led him to Hastinapur, where he became the revered guru to both the Kauravas and the Pandavas. Under his guidance, Arjun rose to become the greatest archer of his time. Yet Drona's role in history was not merely that of a teacher. His loyalty to Duryodhan, though unshaken, often clashed with his moral conscience. Was he a righteous sage, bound by duty, or a warrior swayed by obligation? Born not of flesh, but of wisdom and divine intervention, Dronacharya's life was a paradox, of knowledge and war, of duty and consequence. A teacher, a warrior, a legend. Jarasandh's birth is one that is perhaps the most anecdotal of all. King Drupad, despite his power and wealth, longed for a child who would continue his legacy. In his desperation, he sought the blessings of sage Chandakaushik, a revered ascetic known for his divine wisdom. Moved by the king's devotion, sage Chandakaushik presented him with a sacred fruit, declaring, "This fruit holds the seed of your lineage." Unwilling to favor one wife over the other, Brihadrat split the fruit in half, offering an equal share to both queens. Their hearts swelled with hope as they consumed their portion, believing the gods had finally answered their prayers. But fate had something far stranger in store. Months passed, and the day of birth arrived. Yet instead of the joy of a newborn's cry, the palace was filled with gasps of horror. A lifeless, grotesque form, one half of a body from each womb. Overcome with grief and shame, the king ordered the lifeless remains to be cast away in the dense forests beyond the palace walls. But destiny had not abandoned him yet. Stumbling upon the discarded halves, Jara, a Rakshasi, instinctively placed them together in an act of curiosity. And then it happened. The two halves fused together. A full-bodied child lay before her, alive and breathing. Recognizing the divine miracle before her, Zara rushed back to the palace and presented the child to King Drupad. The boy was named Jarasandh, meaning the one joined by Zara. Jarasandh grew into a ruthless conqueror, expanding Magad's power and waging relentless wars against Krishna. His near-invincible body, fused by fate, made him a feared warrior, but destiny had sealed his downfall. In a final duel, Bhim, guided by Krishna, tore him apart, ensuring the halves could never reunite. If you enjoyed this epic retelling of the genesis of divine figures, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more thrilling stories from Indian mythology. This is just the beginning.